Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, shared ownership. I recently had a really insightful discussion on my IG stories about shared ownership, whether people are for or against it. Now, I'll give you a bit of context. So basically, a friend of mine shared a video with me, and it was basically this documentary that was aired on BBC by Panorama about people in shared ownership situations. And so yeah, in the video they explored the fact that a lot of people are kind of being like exploited because essentially they're paying crazy service charges. One lady said about £3,000 in service charges and maintenance in a month. Another person had an issue whereby they're unable to sell their house because they can't afford to extend the lease. So anyway, the documentary was exploring all of these things. And so yeah, based on that video, my friend was just like, even more now than ever, I definitely believe that shared ownership is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, after that I thought, you know what, let me get the general consensus, what do people really think about shared ownership. I know what I think, I know what he thinks, but yeah, let's see what other people have to say. So yeah, I took it to Instagram, I put up a poll and I asked people whether they were for or against shared ownership. And so surprisingly enough, a lot more people were against it than for it. I don't know, I just thought that more people would be for it because it allows you to get onto the property ladder quicker. So anyway, the results of the poll was that 17% of people were for it, whereas 83% of people were against it. Now, in terms of which side I personally stood on, I was definitely with those who were against shared ownership, and that was simply because I just saw it as the only benefit of getting onto this scheme is the fact that you can say that, you own your own home, even though it's really only partially. So yeah, I just didn't really see any true benefit to people of getting a shared ownership scheme. I just saw it as another way of the government trying to make more money off people and just just not beneficial in any other way really. Whereas there are a lot more disadvantages that I'm aware of. So the first disadvantage that I'm aware of when it comes to shared ownership is the fact that, staircasing is super expensive. So staircasing is basically how you're able to increase the level of ownership that you have of a property. So you staircase from maybe 25% to 50% and then, all the way up to 100%. So yeah, staircasing is super expensive. You've got legal costs, you've got valuation costs, you've got mortgage fees. Maybe you might need to end your current mortgage product early and start another one, and in that case you're going to have fees to exit early. You might need to take on another mortgage to enable you to buy this bigger share in the property. There's so many costs. As well as that, you may also need to consider stamp duty. So yeah, there's a lot of costs involved in staircasing. So it's really, what is actually the benefit of doing shared ownership if every time you want to increase your share you're going to have to spend so much money? There just seems to be way too many costs associated, and so it just already seems is there really a benefit of doing shared ownership rather than just waiting to save a bit more and then being able to buy your own property 100% share? I just didn't really understand this. Another disadvantage, I was also aware that basically you can only buy shares in 10% increments. So basically, if you start on a 25% share, before you're even able to get to 100, you'd have to do increments of 10. How many times before you can even get to this 100% share? So you can just imagine all the costs that are going to be associated with doing all those, staircasing increments to get to 100%. That just seems crazy to me. Another disadvantage, they are usually leasehold properties and therefore you have service charges to pay. Now, we all know that service charges can increase, year on year without much notice. And so really, you may be tied into a property whereby your service charges are out of your control and get more and more expensive to a point that maybe you won't be able to afford it. And even if you can afford it, it just gets really extortionate to the point of what even is the point? Why am I here? And for me personally, even if it's not a case whereby your service charges keep increasing, I've just never really liked the idea of paying service charges or, even ground rent on a property that I own. I just feel if I bought the property, why are you still expecting me to pay you money each month towards something? I don't get it. Yeah, I get what they're for, service charges, maintenance, all that kind of stuff. But I'm just why should I have to pay that? Maybe it's just me, but yeah, I'm sure there are others that think this way as well. Another disadvantage is the fact that you're responsible for covering all maintenance and repair. So 100% of maintenance and repair costs, although you may only have a 25% share in the property. Again, that's crazy. If you only own 25%, why are you paying 100%? Why is it not equal to the share that you own in the property? It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, that's another big one for me. Another disadvantage I'm aware of is difficulty in selling your shared ownership property. Now, so basically, when you decide that you want to sell your property, the housing provider has 8 weeks basically to give priority to people on their list. And so if after 8 weeks your housing provider is still not able to find somebody on their priority list to buy the shared ownership property, then you can take it to market yourself and give it to an estate agent. Now, this is where it gets a bit more difficult. Your estate agent needs to find a buyer who has a shared ownership friendly mortgage. Now, a lot of banks and lenders don't do this, and so it becomes really tricky because you need to find a buyer who's going to be able to get a shared ownership mortgage. And finally, the last disadvantage for me is the possibility of your rent increasing in line with the property price increasing. And so basically it's a thing of where, like, let's say your rent is £300 a month, and then because obviously the house price is increasing, it goes from £300 a month to £400 to £500. It's just like, that is not that's not feasible, in the sense that you want to know how much rent you're paying. And really, if you've bought a share in a property, if you haven't staircased, then why should your rent increase? Like, there should be a locked-in agreement of, okay, this is what I'm paying. Like, that's just, for me, that's really how it should play out. That's how it would be fair. So those are the disadvantages and cons that I saw of shared ownership. And outside of that, I even had additional questions. Now, I'm saying had because I've slightly changed my mind a little bit because I've learned more about it following the conversation that I had with my followers on Instagram. So anyway, I had additional questions about shared ownership, which include the fact of, property equity. Do you actually benefit from it? So when the house price increases, do you actually benefit from it rather than just paying towards the property? So, paying monthly mortgage payments, paying monthly rental payments. Do you actually benefit if the house price increases by, let's say, £10,000? Do you get anything? Another question that I had is it really possible to staircase to 100% ownership? Because you don't see many cases like that. And this is definitely one thing that a lot of my followers picked up as well. Like, is it possible to staircase up to 100% ownership? If it's not, then what exactly again is the point of getting a shared ownership property if you can't increase your share over the years? Now, upon doing further research in this area on my own, I found that actually some housing providers do actually limit the maximum that you can staircase up to. So basically you don't even have the option at times to staircase up to 100%. So you'll never own the home fully as your own. So it's just again, what is the point? Another question I had is basically that as the property increases in value, when you're fully ready to maybe staircase to 100%, if in the case that your provider allows you to, then do you actually have to pay the current value? So let's say you bought the property £250,000. Well, you bought your share when the property was worth £250,000, but then now today it's worth £300,000 and you want to increase your share. Do you have to increase your share based on the new current price? And why is that? Because I feel like if you've gotten at the point that it was a certain price, then it should be locked in your agreement that when I want to increase my share, I'm increasing my share based on the £250,000 value. But I don't know if that's how it actually works. The final question that I had is about extending leases. Now, with shared ownership properties, most of the times they are leasehold properties, and so you're really going to have to consider extending the lease at some point if you want to make sure that you're still in a good position to be able to sell on the property. Now, with leaseholds, it's generally a rule that basically you shouldn't allow your property to get to less than 80 years remaining on the lease. To be honest, I wouldn't even wait to that point. I wouldn't have less than 90 years on a lease before I extend it. And that's really because extending a lease can be so expensive, and the less years you have, the more expensive it can be to extend. I think when you leave your property to about 80 years before you extend the lease, it could cost you is it 10k or 12k? I'm not sure. I looked at it the other day, but yeah, it's quite expensive to extend the lease. And so really, you want to make sure that you keep an eye on that and extend as soon as possible rather than leaving it till too late, because you're going to trap yourself. Mortgage lenders do not give mortgages to people for properties that have less than 80 years on the lease. And even 80 years, not a lot of mortgage lenders will give you a mortgage. And so yeah, you don't want to put yourself in that position. So those are pretty much the disadvantages I saw of shared ownership. Those are, the questions that I had around it. However, after taking it to Instagram and having conversations with people, especially those who are in shared ownership homes and schemes, I definitely saw how it can be beneficial if done strategically. So first of all, you can actually benefit from positive equity as long as you sell your property rather than staircase. So basically, let's say you bought a property 25% share and it increases in value by £30,000. Rather than trying to staircase to increase your share in the property to potentially get more based on the increase in value, what you want to do is sell to benefit from the value. By doing that, if you've got a 25% share in the property, it's increased in value by £30,000, then you'll get your 25% share, which is £15,000. If you try and staircase, you're going to spend a lot of that money on all the costs associated with staircasing, as I mentioned earlier. So yeah, that is number one. You can definitely benefit, but make sure that you sell rather than staircase. The second thing that I've learned about shared ownership after speaking to people who are in these positions is basically that when it comes to maintenance and service charges, this is actually something that is not too bad after all. So obviously there are a lot of stories out there where people are paying like crazy amounts in service charges and maintenance, but actually upon speaking to one of my followers, she's actually told me that when it comes to maintenance charges, service charges, monthly mortgage payments, monthly rental payments, she's not paying anything more in total than what she would have paid out on the open market if she was renting. And so really it's nice to see that basically it's a good way of renting basically and having a stake in a property. Another thing to add to this is basically that the amount that you pay in terms of monthly mortgage payments as well as rent is generally a lot cheaper than when you pay out in rent on the open market. So again, with this, shared ownership is good if basically you're somebody that you can't afford to buy your own property 100% just yet, but you don't just want to be renting in a case whereby you don't benefit from any potential equity.
Oops, one more, I forgot this one. So basically, I was also told by some of my followers who have shared ownership homes that it's actually surprisingly quite easy to sell. So you know how I mentioned earlier that the housing provider has a priority list? Apparently within those 8 weeks, it's actually quite easy for them to get a number of sellers to buy your property. So yeah, there it goes. Apparently it's not that hard to sell your shared ownership property.
So yes, guys, that is my view. I definitely feel like it's been good to, hear the argument from both sides, hearing from those who are against it for their reasons, which are similar to mine, and basically those who are for it because of the fact that, they've been able to benefit from the scheme. And so, yeah, definitely at this point, I'm not against it in the way that I was. I'm actually sort of like 50-50. I think it's a good scheme for those who know how to be strategic with it and actually work it in their favour. So yeah, hopefully this video has helped you. If it has done, please do give it a thumbs up. If you've enjoyed it, please also give it a thumbs up. Please do also subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and also turn on your bell notifications. So yeah, thank you for watching, and actually if you have any other video suggestions of topics that you'd like me to cover, please do let me know in the comments and I'll create that video for you. So yeah, thanks for watching and I'll catch you later. Bye.